Let's meet our next Brewbound Award winner, the 2024 Beyond Beer Company of the Year. It's Surfside, the popular ready to drink canned cocktail brand. Joining me now is Clem Pappas, CEO of Stateside Brands. Congratulations, Clem.
Justin, thank you so much. Really appreciate the award and the honor.
Hey, it is our pleasure. So, Surfside has definitely earned it. You're having another great year. You're chasing 5 million cases this year. What do you attribute the growth to this year?
As far as Surfside, we feel like we've just really been fortunate on a number of fronts, and I think it's not really one thing. It's a combination of everything, right? It's kind of like the three-legged stool that's only as strong as its weakest leg, and so I think we've been fortunate to have great partners. I think we have a brand that resonates and a liquid that resonates, and it's meeting. Basically a consumer need that was not met prior to Surfside. If you look back over time, you had the rise of White Claw as the first malt-based RTD, and that obviously was meeting a huge unmet consumer need. But pretty quickly, Gallo figured out how to do a vodka version, right, with High Noon, and then that's taken off with a lot of momentum. And I feel like we were fortunate to be able to step in at a time when RTDs and particularly spirit-based RTDs had already proven that they could scale, in the case of High Noon. And so we felt like, hey, there was really an opportunity with iced tea and lemonade. That's a natural for a vodka base. And so I think we've been, fortunate with the timing to be able to step in at a time when spirit-based RTDs are really taking off.
You also hit on a time that consumers are really seeking non-carbonated options.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, right? We we really felt like iced tea and lemonade should not be carbonated. And I think there was a minute there at the sort of the height of the malt seltzer craze when just every kind of flavor of seltzer was coming out, right? And there was iced tea flavored seltzer and lemonade flavored seltzer. And that kind of just always struck our sensibilities. It's like, iced tea really shouldn't be carbonated, right? And so, when we felt like, hey, we wanted to come out with an iced tea, we wanted to be clear that it wasn't carbonated, more really to prevent consumer confusion because there were a number of products out there that were seltzers, and I think that consumers intuitively assume that a can is pressurized, right? It's carbonated. So we really kind of led with that non-carbonated message when we actually put the product out on the market, and we led with that statement of no bubbles. We thought that would be more of a point of clarification than an actual selling point, and it turns out that there was a huge demand for this type of product, and a lot of people that were just thrilled to be able to have a drink that wasn't carbonated and didn't bloat and so forth.
Surfside has really built out its national distribution map this year. Why was it important to move so fast with that?
Yeah, I think, going back to the, previous part of the conversation about the point in time here, right? And so this category has moved very quickly, and we feel like it's going to continue to move quickly. But we do feel like the music's going to sort of stop, so to speak, at a certain point, right? And the category will become mature, and there will sort of be, a handful of winners and a handful of sort of categories that will be winners, and there'll be a long tail of entrants that, came in and didn't succeed. And so, we certainly want to be in that former category and not the latter. And we felt like, boy, we put this out in kind of our local home market, and the reception was just so strong, really on an organic basis. We felt like we know we have something here. We obviously, you put something out in the world, you're not sure how it's going to be received. It was beyond whatever our wildest expectations could have been. And so we felt like, hey, there's a real opportunity here, as I said, in the spirit and spirit tea and lemonade category that we think is a natural. We feel like we've been able to hit it with the branding and the liquid and so forth. But if we don't get it out there nationally, we could potentially lose that race and have other competitors come in and get in front of us. And so we felt like, hey, we needed to build out the footprint. Obviously, for a lot of the country, the brand is not very well developed. But before you can develop the brand, you've got to at least sign up distribution and get a foothold. And so for a lot of the country, particularly once you move west off the immediate, eastern seaboard, this year was really about getting the distribution network, getting our sales force stood up, starting to seed independents, liquor channels on premise. And when we roll into 2025, that's when, now that we have the distribution and we've proven success in a lot of markets, we think we'll see a huge increase in chain distribution. So that's when we really think like start to, actually scale in some of these markets. That this first year was really just kind of dipping our toe in the water.
What have you learned from expanding a spirits-based brand nationwide?
Yeah, boy, where to begin, right? So, as dicey as beverage alcohol is in general with the various states and the rules, RTDs are really in a category of themselves because they don't conform nationally to either kind of the beer channel or the spirits channel, right? And so there are many states, which are control states but have now deregulated uh, RTDs, spirits RTDs below a certain ABV into the beer channel. So for Indiana, for example, we waited until July because the law changed in July and it allowed beer distributors to start carrying RTDs. So, there's just a ton to learn. Every market has its own story. Texas presents a unique challenge, right? We have Class B situation there. So basically, the route to the on-prem goes through specs. So that becomes a really important customer to work with. And, we feel we need to develop our brand in the on-premise to drive trial and awareness. And, the old adage, brands are built in the on-premise. Well, if you want to accomplish that in Texas, you basically have to go through 4 tiers. So, again, I don't want to bore the audience with going through state by state by state, but there's a lot of complexity and as fast as the legal and regulatory landscape is changing, state by state, it's that much more to swallow and digest.
Even your home state of Pennsylvania made some changes, I believe, this year.
It's just been about 2 months, so that's been a big win for us. We're really excited about it. Previously we were, as far as off-premise goes, we were really only allowed to sell through the state stores. And Pennsylvania does operate their own stores. And they really weren't set up for it, right? So not really like no refrigeration in these stores. A lot of them are really more set up as bottle shops. So they did a pretty good job with it. But now that we're available in grocery, the home Ds are still big players in Pennsylvania as well. It just opens us up to a much larger market.
Well, Surfside launched a lemonade variety pack earlier this year in your core market of the Mid Atlantic. How has that performed so far?
It's been really beyond our expectations. So we got caught a little bit because we didn't know how much to produce, right, with a new product coming out this year. But putting out that lemonade variety pack, in many cases, it sold at par, or even in some of the newer markets, it sold above where our original starter pack, what we call, with mostly iced tea flavors in it. So that was, really a very resounding success, and we think that part of the market is probably just as big as the tea market, potentially maybe even bigger on the spirits RTD side. So definitely a huge win, and we're excited to roll that out to the rest of the country.
How incremental has that been to the tea business?
100%.
Really?
We've seen virtually no cannibalization. Yeah, I mean, if you look at our our core volume in our core states, it was up triple digits, and the lemonade was all incremental on top of that.
You mentioned the on premise channel. How much ground has Surfside gained so far there?
Yeah, so we're about 30% on-premise volume. Now, as our volume grows, the share of on-prem has decreased a little bit. It was about 34% a year ago. Now it's about 30. So it's decreased a little bit, but in the meantime, the brand has tripled. And so, obviously classically you see closer to an 80-20 number. But it plays very, very well in the on-prem. It's a huge opportunity for us, certainly to introduce new consumers to the brand, getting the cans in hands, having that billboard effect. Um, but the other thing I wanted to mention, have you heard of this relatively newer company called Beerboard that does the on-premise? So they track a number of regional and national on-premise chains. And while we don't have the breadth of distribution to win any of the sort of volume contests there, in terms of velocity, Surfside half and half is actually the number one velocity RTD that they track.
You're in year three. What have you learned about who the Surfside consumer is at this point?
Yeah, and we're always trying to learn more. So give you some sketch of what we know, and with the caveat that we're digging into some of those questions and trying to learn more. But we're seeing biggest consumer is LDA through 39, right? So relatively younger, but also does well in the next kind of age bracket up as well, and you know certainly not our core demographic, but even an older demographic in 50s, 60s, 70s. These are still approachable products, right? So if you think about playing on a golf course and having an Arnold Palmer, we're not asking people to try something that's really out of their wheelhouse or something totally new. But we track extremely well with active lifestyle. So people that are out there getting outdoors, doing exercise, hiking, skiing, boating, all those sorts of things, that sort of psychographic tracks well. And certainly, as I said, the kind of LDA through like mid to late 30s is really our core consumer.
What do you see as sort of like the blueprint for, growing this thing to where you think it should be within the next 2 to 3 years?
We put that out basically looking at High Noon as the model, right? And so when you think about spirit-based RTDs, obviously, they're far and away the leader in the category. And when you look at the depletion rankers, they're up there. They'll be between probably 25 and 30 million case depletions this year. We think we'll be number two, probably somewhere between 4.6 and 5 million cases this year. So there's a big gap between number one and number two, and then there's probably another million case gap between number two and number three. So when we put that out, we really look at that as like, hey, we see the velocity when we look at the data that we are above actually High Noon. We're the category leader in velocity, but we don't have the distribution. So like sort of simple looking at Nielsen numbers, right? We'll have 25 to 30% higher velocity metrics, but our distribution is maybe only a quarter of where a High Noon or even a brand like Neutral or Cutwater has really strong distribution. So that's where when we look at the path, and you look at High Noon has now been out I think 7 or 8 years. That's really what we look at as a model for what our growth could be. And so, again, I mean, I think how do we get there? It comes back to what we talked about. We've got to continue to execute at that level in more geographies. We have a number of markets that are, very, I would say, early in the development stage, and some markets which are kind of in the middle, and some markets which have had it obviously since year one. And I think the exciting thing for us is kind of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware are our core original three markets where we launched Surfside. And, we're all signing up for at least 50% growth on a pretty healthy base in those markets next year. And when you look at, mid-stage markets, big markets like Florida and New York, we're signing up for 100% growth there. And then when you get to a little more far afield markets in California and some in the Midwest, that's where it's more of a wide open space where percentages get silly, but we think we have a lot of room to grow there.
Any new big bets that you're going to be making in 2025 as far as new products or new lines go?
Yeah, so we'll be rolling out with a green tea variety pack. So last year we floated in a couple of core markets just a single green tea, and that was met with a lot of success. So we've got a variety pack now that'll have multiple variations on green tea, including one I'm pretty excited about. It's half lemonade, half green tea, so sort of the green Arnold Palmer, if you will. and we're excited about that one as well as a mango and a peach green tea. So that'll be rolling out to a number of markets as well. Other big piece is the 24 ounce, or as we call it in the on the spirit side, the 700 ml can with a fun resealable closure that we're required to have by regulation. So that's an exciting package for us. We think it presents an opportunity, particularly in states where we can be distributed into convenience channel. It's the lowest point of entry into our brand and our category, right? And so you don't have to buy an 8 pack and potentially risk $20 for a small markup to a FMB. You could try Surfside instead of whatever else it was that you might have grabbed out of the cooler.
We're excited to see where it all goes in 2025. So, congratulations, Clem, to you and the Surfside team.
Justin, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. It was great to be with you, and appreciate the award.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure.